guys, thank you for joining me today. I am Chrysalis and this is Women on Wrestling. So in today's video, I'm going to put to rest the age-old question as to whether or not professional wrestling is fake. It's not. And I'm going to explain why in just a few minutes. So if this is your first time joining me today, I have under my belt about 10 plus years of experience in stage combat. Now, stage combat is similar to professional wrestling in that a lot of the moves that we do, because we are working in a theater in the round, meaning that we have audience members on all four sides of the stage, needs to be done in such a way as to absolutely positively minimize the amount of space that could potentially happen that would pull that person out of their suspension of disbelief that what we're doing is real and spontaneous in the moment. Now, I know that sounds somewhat contradictory, but basically what we did in the form of stage combat that I participated in, and we drew a lot of inspiration from professional wrestling during the Attitude Era at the time that I was doing it, so it gives you an idea of when this was happening in my life. But what we did basically was we would choreograph our fights. We would then spend 16 hours a week rehearsing those fights for probably about, I want to say 6 to 8 weeks before the show actually started. And then those fights were fights that we would perform 1 to 2 times a day, 2 days a week for about 8 weeks long, 6 to 8 weeks for the run-up of the show that we were participating in. So what we would do with the choreography is that we would take our time learning the moves that we had choreographed, because where I was, we were allowed to choreograph our own fights. They were not choreographed for us and then given to us to learn. We choreographed our own fights with our opponents. And in doing so, by spending that amount of time working on our fights, choreographing our fights, and subsequently rehearsing the fights, by the time the show actually opened, all of our fights were predominantly muscle memory. What we would do would be almost instinctual, and it would have that feel as if what we were doing in that moment was completely improvised, completely spontaneous, and not in any way, shape, or form choreographed or scripted. Now, conversely, what professional wrestling is similar in that it is scripted. It is predetermined. When two opponents or two performers are going down to the ring, they know as they're walking down to that ring who is going to win the match. They know who the winner is going to be, who the loser is going to be, and they know what the storyline is that the fight is supposed to tell. The referee, of course, is in on it as well. But the difference here is that with professional wrestling, it is all improvised. Pretty much everything that they do in the ring is completely spontaneous, done in the moment, and they're calling those shots as the match progresses based on a number of factors, including the environment, including the audience and crowd, and including the storyline that they have been tasked with telling. So there's an obvious difference between what I did and what professional wrestlers do. Now, where I am and where I am located, we have a pretty heavy contingent of professional wrestlers that either live in the area part-time or full-time, and as such, we would have a number of them come out to our shows and give their feedback on it. And a lot of times, at least when I was doing it, we would have a considerable number of them tell us that we were crazy because the things that we were doing involved weaponry like swords and axes and everything else. I worked at Ren Fairs. That's what I did. That basically means that I was doing a good majority of the things that professional wrestlers did, but I was adding in a bunch of different things that were long and pokey and could really hurt you if you got involved with it. However, at the time, this is when TLC matches were starting. This is when a lot of the ECW stuff was going on, so you had a lot of that extremism going on in professional wrestling. And though we pulled on some of that ourselves, we also had a lot of compliments from professional wrestlers on what we did because we integrated a lot of that feel with our fights that people enjoyed with professional wrestling at the time. Getting a little long-winded on it, but there's a point to this, and that point is, as soon as you auditioned for our shows, as soon as you auditioned and were accepted, the very first thing that they would do when we would start our rehearsals is they would tell each and every single person there that when it comes to doing any sort of stage combat, when it comes to doing any sort of stunts, period, because stunt work is considerably different than professional wrestling as well as stage combat. But whenever you did anything like that, it was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when you were going to get hurt. And that's an extremely important factor that I want to stress with this, and the reason why we need to stop using fake as a term for professional wrestling. Because that particular line, right then and there, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, indicates that professional wrestling is indeed real. It is scripted, yes, I will give you that. It is predetermined. I will give you that as well. But that does not in any way, shape, or form negate the physicality and the things that are being done in that ring. Are punches pulled? Sure. Are kicks pulled? Sure. Are swantons pulled? Kind of hard to do that when you got, 165 pounds plus of muscle flying through the air and then landing on somebody on the mat below. Does the mat have some padding to it? Sure. But again, anytime you throw your body at the ground, it's going to hurt no matter what you're hitting. Let's see. Do the ropes hurt? Well, yes. You can see the marks on the wrestlers when they jump, when they're going back and forth through the ropes. You can see where the ropes are hitting them. There's contact being made. Anytime contact is actually being made, there is at least a margin of error for that contact to be significant, and therefore there's a margin of error for things to go wrong. Now, what I did, the margin of error for any sort of mistakes or whatnot was fairly low, because again, what we were doing was choreographed. So we spent a considerable amount of time working on our fights, getting that muscle memory down, and knowing where we were supposed to be at any given moment during our show. With wrestling, because wrestling is predominantly improvised, they might very well go down to the ring knowing that they have a certain number of moves they want to do. When you see Drew McIntyre walk down to the ring, you're going to see a Claymore. When you see The Undertaker walk down to the ring, you're going to see a Tombstone. The finishers and things are things that are going to be done and were probably discussed prior to the performers walking down to the ring. But I would say a good 90% of the work being done in the ring itself is stuff that is done on the fly. It's called shots that are being called out right then and there in that particular moment, because of the fact that they're working off of the storyline that they're trying to tell. They're working off the audience and the feel and the energy that the audience is giving them, or not, because the audience really is a significant factor. And I think we've been seeing that right now with the number of empty arena shows that are going on due to our global pandemic. However, that does not negate in any way, shape, or form that wrestling is real. Is it Olympic style wrestling? Is it traditional Greco-Roman style wrestling? No. You're not going to have two people walk down to a mat and the best person that day wins. The best ability, the best technique wins. That's not how wrestling works. It's scripted. Scripted and predetermined are far better words for what wrestling happens to be. So we need to put to rest the idea that wrestling is fake. Point in case, Undertaker throwing Mankind off a cage, going through a table and hitting the ground. Man's still falling through the air. Man's still hitting the table. Now, even if that table happens to be scored in such a way to make it easier for the table to break once Mankind's weight hits it, he's still going through a table and then landing on the ground. And I don't know about you, I don't know how many of you have ever been into an arena in any place or shape or form. That ground is hard. Even if underneath it there's a layer of grass, because it's an outdoor arena or whatnot, the things that they put on the ground to level it off are not comfortable things to be landed on. You're either landing on concrete, you're landing on some form of wood thing put down in order to level everything off and make it even. It's not comfortable and it hurts. You fall that far down the ground, it's gonna hurt. Triple H getting wood in his leg whenever he was during his match with Mankind. Again, go back. Perfect example. Go back and watch any of Mick Foley's matches and then come back and tell me that wrestling is fake. Okay? Mick Foley alone proves the point that wrestling is not fake. Jeff Hardy proves the point that wrestling is not fake. Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, you can name a significant number of people to prove the point that wrestling is not fake. So, by all means, guys, we need to put to rest this term, wrestling is not fake. It is scripted, it is predetermined, and it is indeed sports entertainment. So with that, whether you agree or disagree with me, by all means, please leave a comment down below. I would love to develop a community of other like-minded folks, or at least folks that enjoy professional wrestling and want to have some lively, respectful debates on the topic. I, again, have a bit of experience underneath my belt, so I can kind of give at least some insight that's a little bit different from the norm as to what you'll see on traditional wrestling channels. So I hope you'll join me there. If you've enjoyed what I've said today and you would like to see more of this content, by all means, please hit the subscription bell down below, as well as the notification bell, so that you can be notified when I upload new content. I try to do so on a weekly basis, and it's something that I've really been enjoying doing, so I hope you will continue to join me there. Again, guys, until next time, enjoy, and I'll see you later.